Hey everybody, I'm John.
And I'm Natalie, and we are American Tifosi. On this podcast, we talk about everything Formula One, drama on the track, drama off the track. We're talking about it all here today. And let me tell you, there's a lot of drama on this track this weekend. Let's get
That's
into it.
that's for sure. Imola race was a pretty good race, and we're going to review that. Natalie, what's your lasting memory?
My lasting memory from this race is an unfortunate one. It's a little sad, but really the thing that's going to stick with me is Kimi Antonelli and his underperformance, I think. Is disappointing. I feel bad for him, his first home race, but that's what's going to stick with me.
You know,
What about you?
the I really like Imola, and the track was beautiful. It's not a glitzy and glamoury track. You didn't see like celebrities and stuff like that. There wasn't the normal grid walk and pomp and circumstance, but just
Right.
for racing's sake, the track is was beautiful. The weather held out. So if it is truly the last Imola race, then it's good, but my lasting memory, I guess, is that it's sad because
Yeah,
it's the last one, at least for the
right.
foreseeable future. But moving into the race, before the race, we had some news about McLaren's brakes,
Yes.
and I thought that was interesting, and it's going to lead to maybe some more hijinks moving on. Red Bull had kind of complained about McLaren's brakes. They did a full quarantine or sequestering of Oscar's car at the end of the
Yes,
Miami
they
race,
did.
and we didn't find out about it until just a couple days leading up to the race week. And F1 has said that McLaren is very clever,
Yeah,
which to me means there's now nine other teams that are going to be scrambling to try and figure out what the heck they're doing to keep their back tires so cold. I didn't
right.
realize that they get to 300 to 400 degrees Celsius. Like,
Yeah. Well,
and we saw
Alonso
that.
this weekend, he had a
Yeah,
fire.
yeah. So, yeah, was there any other things before the race that you wanted to kind of talk about?
Yeah, I kind of wanted to mention Mercedes a little bit. We'll talk more about Mercedes, obviously, with Kimi Antonelli and George Russell too. They were both on the screen a lot this weekend. But I have to say that I think that Kimi Antonelli was under a lot of pressure. His first home race, we saw that he brought like his classmates to come on Thursday, which I thought was really sweet. But someone was missing, and that is Papa Wolf. Papa Wolf, Toto Wolf, was missing from his den this weekend. He was in California for his kid's graduation, but I do think that that might have had a little bit of an effect on Kimmy's performance. Toto wasn't there, and Toto's like been there and very supportive of Kimmy as Kimmy has worked to get out of rookie status, and he wasn't there for Kimmy's first home race. So I kind of think that might have been part of Kimmy's problem.
I'm not disagreeing with you. It seems like Toto misses a race or two every year, and I get it.
Mm,
I mean, for his kid's college graduation, I mean, it's understandable that he missed it. It was kind of weird, not to change the subject, but Toto Wolff, no Martin Brundle, no Crofty. It was kind of weird that,
hmm
and I wonder if it's just because Immel is kind of in the middle of nowhere. I don't know,
Yeah, maybe. I think
logistically
you're right.
getting in and out. But on the note of Kimmy, like, would you say Kimmy has underperformed this? I mean, I'm sorry, overperformed this year?
No, I don't think so. I understand that as a rookie, he's in the best car, so of course that's going to help him out a little bit. Of course, he's going to perform better than the other rookies. But you also notice that George, he's been in the top five every race, and this race he only got seventh, so he ended that streak. So I don't think that he did not, I mean, he didn't finish the race. Kimmy didn't finish the race this season. So I could see how this could be seen as like, oh, maybe he's not as good as he actually has like seemed that he is. But I honestly think that this race just or this weekend wasn't good for Mercedes. Um, but I don't know. What do you think?
I I think he's overperformed. I mean, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, he is a rookie. Rookies are going to make rookie mistakes, and really we
Right.
haven't seen them. Now he didn't finish like you mentioned, and that wasn't his fault. His car just crapped out on him. However, he qualified 18th, right? I mean, or 17th maybe. Um, so he wasn't. and to your point, yes, Mercedes wasn't as strong this week. So George finishing seventh, then you would have expected Kimi to finish maybe in the top 10 or something. Uh,
Right.
and I just thought that, he definitely had some hangups in qualifying. And so I think if he was overperforming, then this was an understandable kind of hang up for the weekend, or rookie itis to, and hopefully he's got it out of the system. So because it's been fun to watch him for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I hope that was just a fluke in his season, but he is a rookie. I'm sure he has shown he's made a few mistakes this weekend, but yeah, I don't know. But we can move on to practice. I have only like one comment on this, but
Okay.
it sort of centers around, and we'll get more into this later, but around Alpine. I think
Mhm.
that at the beginning of practice sort of set a bad omen for the team of Alpine, and that is with Pierre Gasly on the track, brutally destroying a rabbit out there, um, just red everywhere. And I thought that was pretty awful. And that started the weekend off bad for Alpine. They did not perform well this weekend. And I think it all started with him hitting that rabbit. And if he didn't hit that rabbit, maybe this weekend would have been different for Alpine.
Yeah, it has to be said. Alpine did not have a good weekend, so maybe that was a bad omen. The thing I thought was interesting with practice, the whole thing is Pirelli introduced a new compound of tires, and
Yes.
although that was unremarkable, I understand why Formula One is doing this. They introduced an even softer, it's the softest tire they've ever used, and the idea is to maybe they'll get faster laps, but then they'll have to do more pit stops. So that's going to lead into more strategy, and so
Hmm.
it was interesting they chose to bring it at Imola, a track that's kind of hard to pass on, so that you would hope would increase the pit strategy. But the thing that I think is notable, and we'll talk about this later, is um, they used them during practice, they used them during qualifying, but they were all afraid of them. They were all afraid of the
Yeah.
C2 compound during the race, and we'll talk about that at the end with our Ferrari and their pit strategy. But man,
Yes. Always got to mention that
oh,
Ferrari
it
pit
seemed
strategy.
it's like it should be in the same sentence, right? But we move into qualifying, and Yuki had a
Yes,
terrifying crash. That
absolutely.
was a scary looking crash, and I'm really
Frightening.
thrilled that he walked away.
Agreed. I was brought to tears. I was tearing up a little bit. It was really scary. And Yuki has had a few big crashes before too, and this just reminded me of those. But I mean, really, like he flipped maybe two, three, four times over. Thank goodness he landed upright, and it seemed like he was able to get out of the car pretty quickly, and he seemed okay, and he was okay, as we know, he raced. So, but yeah, that was really scary.
Yeah, and then Franco crashed also. Definitely not as um,
He did.
gut wrenching of a crash, but still
No.
gutting because you're
Well,
condemning the team
gut-wrenching
that's
for
worked.
me.
Sure, but not as terrifying. You didn't feel like,
Right.
oh my God, I hope you, because I mean that was listening to the onboard audio of all the different drivers when they saw the video of Yuki. They're like, holy crap, is he alive? Is he
Right.
okay? So I just thought that was
Well, not as terrifying. You have to think about the wrath of Briatore coming down on Franco. You know, Franco only has a 5 race contract right now, and this wasn't a good start for him. And I'm sure he's under a lot of pressure, and this was his first race back into Formula One, but I'd be worried for the talk with Briatore afterwards.
yeah, I was thinking about that, but I agree. But Briatore is the guy that got Franco over there, and he's the guy that made the decision
True.
to. So I kind of think that, granted, he can't keep crashing and he can't keep doing crappy, but he might have a longer leash than, like, I'm guessing he has a longer leash than Doohan,
Yeah, I
because
agree with
Franco
that.
is Briatore's guy. Doohan was
Yeah.
not Briatore's guy, so
No, he definitely was not.
um, yeah. And then in qualifying, we mentioned this with this European leg. Cars teams are going to start logistically. It makes sense for them to start sending their upgrades. And boy, did Aston Martin have an upgrade package because they screwed our Ferraris. Ferrari
Yeah,
finished
they
qualified
did.
11th to 12th. My goodness.
Terrible. I can't believe that we live in a world where Lance Stroll outqualified 2 Ferraris.
Right.
not
Yeah,
even two
without.
Ferraris, but like two really good drivers too. Just in any car, he outqualified Charles and Lewis, and then his car outqualifying a Ferrari is just out of this world ridiculous.
Yeah, I was pretty torqued off to see that that was a thing. And then when we get to qualifying, and I'm like, man, they're not even into Q3, and they're the Aston Martins. So,
Yeah, just ridiculous. And I would
yep.
say, a small thing, but I noticed halfway through qualifying, there was this little graphics thing when we'll get more into graphics later talking about rookies, but they showed that there was a impeding investigation between Perez and Norris, which I don't, somebody needs to get fired or something, but I thought that was a fun moment, but not professional at all from Formula One as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was ridiculous to see. And then also, I think my last comment on qualification is Bierman versus Bortoleto. We've noticed between starting since the Nico and Albon incident, and then leading into Lance Stroll, wasn't sure a couple weeks ago if he was going to make it into Q2. And then this week with Bierman, there was the safety car with Ocon, um, or red flag, I'm pretty sure actually. It was the red flag
Oh, the
actually.
red flag. Yep.
Yeah, it was the red flag, and they weren't sure if Bierman crossed the line before the red flag came out or not. I do appreciate the FIA taking the time to investigate it, but they didn't do it quick enough because Kick Sauber sort of forced the situation and just sent Bortoleto out into the pit lane queue just to wait there. And as soon as the light turned green, he was out, and that made the decision. Bierman was out and Bortoleto was in because he was on the track. Um, and I'm sure you have comments on this too, but I'm really impressed with Kick Sauber's boldness with making that decision because for any team, they need as many advantages as they can get.
Exactly.
Um, but I don't think it's acceptable at all that it took the FIA that long, one, to make a decision, and two, to allow a team to make that decision for them. They are supposed to be the all reigning decision makers, and they allowed this team to make the decision for them, which I don't think is okay. But I am impressed by Kick Sauber's boldness of doing that.
Yeah, I think well, to your point that Sauber needs every advantage that they can get. So
Right.
kudos to them for kind of forcing the hand. The race directors have to do better. I mean, they have to. That said, it turned out the way it was supposed to because Oliver Behrman, I don't think, crossed the line.
Well, we can agree to disagree because I think that he should have been in, but honestly, that part is not even the big problem. The problem is that FAA, the racing directors don't know what they're doing. But I do think that Bierman should have been in, but that's not the
Yeah.
big problem here.
But as we moved to before we moved to the race, we were going to just take note that we've already mentioned that Colapinto had a crash and Yuki had a crash. So and Colapinto, I think you made note of in the formation lap how he was very thankful, effusive
Yeah,
in his thankfulness to his team
he
for
was.
um, yeah, he made a note of, hey, thank you guys for turning my car around, getting it
Right.
back so that I'm able to start. And then Yuki had to, because Colapinto did get a qualifying time,
Hmm.
he was able to start on the grid, but Yuki did not
Yeah,
get a qualifying time, so they had to
right.
start from pit lane. But
Yes.
the engineers did a heck of a good job turning the cars around.
They did, absolutely. So thank you to all engineers out there. They had great weekends, as well as the McLaren engineers on those secret brakes that we don't know anything about, but I'm sure someone smarter does. So yeah, the engineers really pulled through this weekend. I dare say we give them a round of
I
applause.
think you're right.
Thank you, engineers everywhere. Incredible, really incredible. So
As
the
we move into the
race,
race, we had talked about the way this track is laid out, that lap one turn one instances maybe aren't going to be a thing because turn one's not really a turn. It's setting up the hill
right?
climb into that turn two and three. And boy, that was wrong because
Absolutely wrong. Right.
Oscar qualified first, which was great, and he had it for about 400 meters. And then
Yeah.
Max just
And
blew by
then
him.
who swoops in? Max Verstappen. We did talk about, I'd like to mention our last podcast, we talked about only 11 out of the 31 race winners of Imola have started from pole. So when
Have won
Max,
from pole. Yeah.
or from have won from pole. So
Yeah.
when Oscar got first and Max got second for qualifying, I was kind of worried about Oscar winning because he was in pole position. The odds were against him, and it looks like I was right. Max swung in and took the win for himself, which he did it in like classic Max Verstappen fashion. He was ahead of everyone for a long time this whole race. But
Yeah. I mean, and before anybody says anything, everyone has heard Natalie and me rant about Max Verstappen and how he blurs the lines of clean driving and dirty driving. This was not dirty. It was a great
no,
pass.
it was.
Oscar left the door open a little bit. He could have taken the inside line a little more. And in the broadcasts, 4 or 5 laps in, they always go back and show the replay of the start,
Right.
and they showed it. And me, I'm always looking to assign blame, and so I wanted to blame Oscar. And in fact, George Russell, they showed his commentary that happened during, because he was behind him in fifth or sixth, right? And he says, "Geez, Oscar, what the heck are you doing?" Or
Right.
but here's the thing. And then even at the end of the race, Oscar Piastri in the post race interview is like, "Yeah, I could have done better and defended that spot a little bit better." But I don't think there's anybody that thinks that Max didn't have the best car this weekend. So yeah, would have Oscar maybe kept the lead for a lap or two? Sure, but Max is going to get him. I think. I mean, I think it
Yeah.
was a foregone conclusion. And then you look at spoiler alert, there was some safety cars, and after the safety cars, Max just immediately builds his lead right back up. So
Hmm.
um, yeah, I think this was sadly, I think this was Max's weekend.
Yeah,
And
I
then
agree.
to that point, McLaren has been raved for having such a good car, but it has to be said. Remember, we just talked about Yuki Tsunoda starting from pit lane. Well, that guy finished 10th. Red Bull had a
Yeah.
really good car this weekend.
Yeah. They really did. It pains to say it, but you got to give credit where it's due, and Red Bull did really good this weekend, unfortunately to say.
Yeah, I agree,
Um,
and you got to give credit where it's due to your like you said. So Christian Horner, start giving Yuki Tsunoda some credit, you turd.
yeah, yeah, agreed. Let's talk about the safety cars a little bit.
Yeah,
Um, and specifically safety cars and pit stops, because there's a lot of strategy or not strategy that goes into those. But within that first safety car with Ocon, we saw Oscar Piastri got some pretty bad luck with that. He was pitting, and as he was exiting the pit lane, the virtual safety car went on. So that really sucked for him. Um, and
yeah, I would say just
there were a couple others who also had some bad luck, or at least self-declared that they had really bad luck. The first one is Fernando Alonso. He had a very cheeky radio saying he's the most unluckiest racer in the world, which I think is not true. He's gotten lots of points and podiums, but heat of the moment.
yeah, he was unhappy. I thought that well, first of all, you're right. Safety cars always give good luck and they always give bad luck. So in this
Right,
instance, Oscar had made the choice to pit. Um, and that's the thing, is that it was unfortunate timing. The safety car came out in the pit window, so everyone was kind of cycling through pits. So Charles got
right,
screwed, Oscar got screwed. Guess who didn't get screwed? Max Verstappen. And
right,
so, really, to me, that was the end of the end. Like that was, I knew you kind of knew then. All right, well, Max just got the benefit of having a to be able to pit under a safety car, and so it was kind of over then. But to your point, yeah, the some people benefit from the safety cars and some people get screwed by the safety cars. And unfortunately for you and I, the guys that are the people we like, the Tifosi were
right.
not happy with this, right?
No,
Including the American
neither
Tifosi.
was Leclerc. The Tifosi weren't happy, and neither was he. Um, he also said, and this is a pattern for Charles, I feel like he does, and he said at this race that he always gets bad luck with the safety cars, and it happened again this race. Um, Another person who got lucky with the safety car, though, is Alex Albon. And we saw a very, very cheeky, close situation with those two, Charles and Alex, which I think we need to talk about in
For
depth
sure.
and in
That was
detail.
you're talking about the second. Alex benefited from the second safety car.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And Charles did not.
Nope. And this, I think it's combined, and this is going to be so interesting to me, and maybe so, just because I don't know. But the second safety car happens, and pretty much everybody pits except Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri.
Right.
And on the broadcast, they say, oh, yeah, Oscar didn't even ask about pitting; he just knew he couldn't. But then Charles is told, "We don't have tires that will get you to the end of the race." And to me, if I were Charles Leclerc, or if me as an American Tifosi, I'm asking, you mean you have every single tire we have is worse than the tires I have on my car right now?
Right. That
And
can't be true. He's been riding on these tires for, I think it was 17 laps at that point.
right. So in a race weekend, teams get it's either 12 or 13, one's for the sprint weekend, sets of tires, and it's not counting intermediates and wets. To me, it was just an indictment of not one team at any point ran soft tires during the race. So now
Hmm.
you've cut your available tire pool down, and
Right.
and Charles started on mediums and then switched to hards and then just ran the hards till the end. And you're telling me you don't have another set of mediums? My guess is they had a set of mediums that they used in qualify. I don't know. I just don't understand why it happened. And then what happens? Alex Albon pits, Lewis Hamilton pits, and like you said, there's a little drama brewing, right? Because you got them running 4, 5, 6,
Right.
and Charles
And
on old tires.
to comment on the tires, Charles did ask, can we switch to softs? He
Yeah,
wanted to race on the softs for the rest. At that point, I think it was like 11 laps left, but his team said no, and they chose not to put him on the softs, which again is interesting because these tires are the first weekend that they're out, and Charles is thinking maybe like last ditch effort, let me push, and the team says no. But yeah, talking about the situation with the two Ferraris and Albon, we've seen a lot of Williams and Ferrari competing this season. Um, and I don't know, I think I'm on the fence on what should have happened. I understand why Ferrari chose to just make Charles give back the position to Albon because there was 2 laps left. There wasn't time to wait around for the FIA investigation. And what happens if Charles did get a penalty, at the least a 5 second penalty, which would have been terrible for his results,
yeah, yep,
and if not more.
yep, yeah. It's tough. So he made. We kind of knew Albon was going to pass him, and
Right.
Albon tries to pass him. You can say Charles forced him off or whatever, which, by the way, I love that they're still in the old school track, still have the gravel, right? It punishes you for making mistakes.
Yep.
The way I understand the rules, I don't think Albon was, I'm sorry, I don't think Charles was going to get a penalty. But the team Ferrari, Scuderia knows more than we do. And so they're telling Charles to give the place back. I
Right.
we have to assume that they thought that he was going to get a penalty, which would have knocked him down to ninth.
And I think that from my understanding of the rules as well, Charles might have been correct in that he would not have gotten a penalty. It's Charles was still in front of Albon before the situation had happened, but also we know that the FIA isn't consistent. So I that's why I think that maybe Ferrari's panicking a little bit, and Charles just had a terrible, like rough weekend. He finished sixth, which isn't a bad result, but he was sick on Thursday. He had a terrible qualifying. His team was not like taking into consideration his decisions for the race. And like we can get into it a little bit later, but it doesn't sound like he's really excited for Monaco. But I don't know. I think that honestly, Ferrari made a split second decision that needed to happen, and I think that is better than what could have happened. He could have dropped down to ninth or 10th place if he'd been given a penalty. And we don't know because the
And
FIA
that's
doesn't follow its own rules like consistently.
I don't know. I mean, to carry on your point there, like I would have loved to see him come on softs because I had in my race notes, hey, watch what Fernando does. Fernando
Hmm.
pitted during that safety car, and I think he was 16th place, and he made it all the way to 11th on that last little run. Um,
Yeah.
and he only had Sonoda to beat. And I was really hoping for him. They kind of mentioned that they didn't even show the race between Sonoda and Alonso. But my
Hmm.
point is, Fernando gambled and climbed through the field. If Charles would have
Right.
taken softs, yeah, he would have been out behind Albon and Hamilton for sure. But would he have been able to climb through them on being on soft tires?
Right.
I don't know. What I do know is that or I don't what I guess is I think the point of him giving the spot back is kind of moot because we saw Hamilton passed both of them, which was really awesome. So that was great for the
Yeah.
Tifosi, and Hamilton passes both of them. Now he's running in fourth. Charles in fifth, and Albon immediately got back on Charles. Like he was right back
Hmm.
on him again. So I
Yeah.
think he would have passed him eventually anyway.
Right.
And so Charles and Team Ferrari save face and a 5 second or 10 second or whatever penalty by giving the
Right.
spot back when I think the point was moot. I think Alex Albon would have got him anyway.
Agreed.
So
At least they didn't, Alvin didn't catch up plus get a penalty. So I really do
exactly.
think that, I think that giving him the position back was the quickest way to resolve it.
And yeah, and just the best decision moving forward, I think. But
Right.
so we know Max wins. If we review our points, then we see that I got 2 points and you got 1 point.
Yes.
And then we kind of move into the post race things, and there's a couple things I think we want to discuss. But the big one that
Agreed.
we've been talking a lot about Ferrari, and that's because we're making up for our lost time not doing that before. um,
Right.
but Carlos Sainz, he finished in the points. He finishes
Mm,
eighth, and he makes a. I
yes.
don't know. I don't know if it's passive aggressive, if it's a dig or not. I'm just curious what do you think when you hear Carlos Sainz say, "I'm pretty upset with how we finished because we're better than the Ferrari."
I would call it cheeky. I think cheeky is the most neutral term, but I did see that and I thought it was quite funny. Carlos, there have been a few moments this season where Carlos has been sort of asked about Ferrari and he hasn't said anything specific, but you can tell that he's kind of like, yeah, I'm pretty happy with how I'm doing over at Williams.
Yeah,
And there are a lot of cheeky radios this week with Charles being angry, Colapinto thanking his team. I dare call that cheeky. It was something I wasn't expecting, but I thought it was
mm,
sweet. Fernando Alonso, very cheeky about being the unluckiest driver out there. Also with Antonelli, he called out the Nico Hulkenberg in his kick Sauber about impeding during the like exiting the pit lane, and I think one of the commentators just said like, really like Antonelli, like him, you don't need to be doing that. Like that's a kick Sauber, just let it go. So I thought there's a lot of fun, cheeky, you could use the term passive aggressive radios this week, which I always enjoy.
yeah, and I kind of think that they probably happen a lot more than we see. It just kind of
Yeah.
what they choose to air. And speaking of that, it was interesting when Charles was told to give back the spot. Like I
Hmm.
kind of think that he might be getting a fine or a reprimand because they didn't even put closed captions up for what he had to say, and it
Right.
was this is what racing is now, and screw you guys or
Yeah.
whatever it was. Like
Right.
and I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I kind of think that we make fun of Ferrari because we can,
Yeah.
and we're the American Tifosi, so we have that right. But
Yes.
they know more about the penalty than Charles knows. Like they see all the
Right.
angles when Charles doesn't. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but that doesn't lead to happy Charles. And then to your point, I mean, after the race, he took his anger out, and then also said he's not looking forward to Monaco, which is next
No.
week, and
Right. And that's his
that's
home
his
race.
home
He's not
race.
looking forward to his home race. He was asked, like, do you have any hope? Like, do you think you're going to do good in Monaco? And he says no and walks away. So
Yeah,
I he I don't know if maybe he's probably just in the heat of the moment and it is his home race. Of course he's going to be excited for that. He won last year.
for
But
sure.
yeah, he is very unhappy. And speaking of home races, I noticed a trend. I saw this thing. I saw someone talk about it, but I'm going to bring it up because I thought it was very
Sure.
interesting. But there might be a curse of the home races this season.
Do
Oscar in Australia, he crashed. Yuki in Japan. Kimi and Imola didn't even finish the race. And now Charles is coming to Monaco next week. So either
tell.
he broke the Monaco curse last year and he won it. So I
Yep.
hope that he can break this home race curse this year. But it doesn't sound like he's very hopeful. But I'll give him a little bit like I'll have that hope for him. I think we have to.
I'm going to have the hope for him for a couple reasons. I think that Ferraris need upgrades at Monaco, right? That's what there's the tribal rumor around Ferrari is they care about if they know they can't win, they care about Monaco and Monza.
Right.
So I'm guessing that we're going to see upgrades, despite all of the grumbling of Charles and us and how they qualified. They still finished pretty well. I think they
Yeah.
did pretty well. I mean, considering where they started from, Charles is normally a good qualifier, so I think that Monaco I'm not. I'm holding out hope for Monaco
I
secretly, and
agree.
then that's the other thing that I wanted to say because you mentioned this earlier, and I was kind of waiting to trap you on this. But Charles complains about not being the luckiest driver. Well, guess what? He was the luckiest driver last year at Monaco
Yes. He was absolutely
because
the
he
luckiest
got the win.
driver.
Yeah,
He got the
it
win.
became the win.
And I think that with that, specifically with Monaco, we're going to talk a lot about Monaco in the next podcast because it's an iconic race,
Monaco,
but
yeah.
it's Monaco. But I would say that Charles Leclerc, I would say that he knows the track the best. He's grown up on it. Um, and even if he doesn't have the best car, which he absolutely doesn't have the best car,
Hmm.
he knows the track the best. And I think that I'm really holding out hope, and I don't think it's a fool's hope either. I think there a little bit of it is he could actually win it, or he could at least qualify first. He could at least get pole position. I believe that to be true.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. If you get pole position at Monaco, then
You win.
yeah, it's half the battle. I mean,
Right.
so yeah, I think that, and this is something else that to kind of caveat on, and we're seeing this, and maybe I was just blind to it before, but we're seeing it a lot. It seems like this year, every single week, Max Verstappen says my car is crap. Charles Leclerc
Yeah.
says Monaco, oh, I'm not looking forward to it. And what happens? Charles wins Monaco, Max Verstappen wins the race.
Right.
The only thing that might be true is Fernando Alonso when he says he's the unluckiest driver in the world. Maybe I believe him, but realistically, I don't believe drivers in what their assessment of their car is, especially in the heat of the moment.
Agreed.
Um, the only one that I mean, and George Russell actually kind of predicted that he thought that they were going to fall off a little bit. Mercedes was going to fall off a little bit at this track.
And he
So,
was right.
and he was right. Yeah. So as we close up for next week for Monaco, do you have any final thoughts?
Um, I really hope that Charles pulls it together. Very happy for Williams. Incredible drive by Albon. Sad for Kimmy. And I'm really excited for Monaco coming up. It's one of my favorite races.
I'm I'm excited for Monaco. I'm always excited for Monaco. It's never a, a good race, I guess, but it's just
Mm,
the the spectacle around it's always fun, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. So I too am excited for Monaco, and hopefully, you know, hopefully the Tifosi and the Scuderia can turn it around.
I sure hope. Well, we will talk to you guys later this week for our preview on Monaco, and we'll see you later.
Ciao.